We may only be 3 episodes deep here in Season 1 of our realistic Borussia Dortmund career mode, but already we've reached a crunch point in the season. Not only have we reached the knockout stage of the Champions League, where we'll be taking on Juventus in the round of 16, but we'll also be facing a couple of teams who are chasing us down for one of those European places in the Bundesliga, like RB Leipzig, like FC Augsburg. But before we get into today's episode, we do just have a couple of things to address from the comments in episode 1 and 2. Firstly, Guirassi's squad number was for some reason changed to 11, whereas he wears number 9 in real life, so we have made that change. Secondly, JBG has apparently dropped the Bino from his surname, so he will just be Jamie Gittens going forward. Borussia Dortmund have apparently already made Jan Couto's loan deal permanent, so we have picked that option up here in game. Whereas on the left side of our defense, we've had a lot of good suggestions in the comments for potential left backs to pursue. A number of them have been more attacking, forward-thinking options though. Whereas we will be looking for somebody more in that LAMBZY mold, a kind of more traditional fullback or a left-back, centre-back hybrid. In terms of the starting 11, it has been suggested that Emre Can is not best placed in the hearts and minds of Borussia Dortmund fans, and Felix and Mecha should be starting ahead of him, so we will be making that change. It's also been noted Can mostly starts at centre-back when he plays, and that Anton is preferred over Niklas Söller. So we may well be playing Emre Can at centre-back more often going forward. However, we, of course, can't be playing Anton at the moment because he did get injured in the last episode. And then finally, some people did just want me to go over the tactics that we are using at the moment. Has been pointed out in the comments that these aren't necessarily the exact tactics that Nuri Sahin is using in real life. I don't think we necessarily need to replicate the exact tactics that Borussia Dortmund use in real life, as long as we somewhat replicate the style of play. But this is what we're going with. So a 4-2-3-1. However, we have an attacking wing back on the right-hand side, and that is going to be Jan Couto going forward, and he is set to attack. So our right back will be getting forward very much so. Our left back, however, is set to fullback so that we can play basically a 3-2-4-1 when we are in possession. So LAMBZY will not exactly slot in alongside Schlotterbeck and Can, but he will be taking up a more defensive position. Felix Mecha will be holding, and we have our other CDM set to deep lying playmaker. Alongside Jan Couto, we have inside, forward, and attack. So that's Daniel Marlin at the moment. Again, the comments have pointed out that Marlin has wanted out of Borussia Dortmund for some time, so he may be a player we look to move on from in the summer. But we have our right midfielder heading inside so that our right back can overlap. Whereas on the left-hand side, because we have that fullback staying in a more conservative position, we have that player on the left-hand side set to wing it and attack, so hugging the touchline a little bit more. That leaves space for Julian Brandt to drift out to that left-hand side. He's currently set to playmaker balanced. And then we have Guirassi on advanced forward and support. So thank you to everyone who offered their input in episode 1 and episode 2. It is really useful to get information from you guys, and particularly from fans of the actual club that we are using in game. So thank you in particular to those handful of Borussia Dortmund fans who offered their suggestions. One thing that is important to remember going forward though is that whilst we like to keep things realistic here on the channel, realism doesn't necessarily mean just imitating exactly what is happening in real life. Replicating realism in the game is more about replicating things that could happen, things that are plausible, things that are possible. And that's obviously going to be more and more important going forward, because there's going to be an ever-increasing disparity between what's actually happening in real life and where we are in the game as we get deeper and deeper into the save. So the principle we want to remember is not necessarily, is this happening in real life, but would this happen in real life? Could this realistically happen in real life? Today's video is sponsored by Enigma Football, the UK's leading supplier of football shirt mystery boxes. Whether you're looking for a fun way to expand your own football shirt collection, or you're looking for a unique gift for the diehard football fan in your life, Enigma Football have got you covered. Their mystery boxes start at just $34.99, which is almost half the standard retail price, and you can be 100% sure that their shirts are authentic because they get them straight from the clubs and manufacturers themselves. And you can reduce that price even further by using code LAMBZY at the checkout for 10% off your first order. That code applies to any single football shirt mystery box, and it also applies to the first month of any mystery box subscription package, where you'll receive a fresh new shirt on your doorstep every single month. You can be sure you'll get a shirt that you like too. You can ask Enigma Football to send you a shirt from a specific league with a specific color or pattern, or to avoid certain teams. And if you still don't like what they send, you have 60 days to either return or exchange it. So head over to Enigma Football and place your order today. The link is in the description, and be sure to use code LAMBZY at the checkout for 10% off your first order. Shout out to Enigma Football for sponsoring the video and for hooking me up with a couple of shirts, including a Dortmund shirt for this series. Now let's get back to the video. But with all that being said, we are just about ready to get into today's fixtures, where our featured game will be the home leg of our Champions League doubleheader against Juventus. I'll show you highlights of the away leg, as well as our trip to RB Leipzig in the Bundesliga, and we will quick sim the remaining fixtures against St. Pauli, against Augsburg, and to round out the month against Mainz. So Emre Can does drop into the back line for our trip to the Millerntor Stadium. Felix Metscher starts in midfield, and Max Bayer for the first time this season starts out on the right. However, we only managed to come away with a point from St. Pauli, a 0-0 draw. And there may be some tired legs as we travel to Juventus midweek. Ryerson and Adeyemi each coming in on the left-hand side. Garassi probably going to have to come off at some point during the second half by the looks of things. And I anticipated a pretty tough away day, but Julian Brand was quickly up to his old tricks. Add this one to the list of goal of the season contenders. This free kick from just outside the penalty area could also have made the list, but it flashed just over. Juventus did well to work themselves back into the game, particularly in the second half, but Kobel once more was on top form, and a handful of saves from our goalkeeper meant we stayed ahead long enough to double our lead through Max Bayer late in the game. For Antoine Griezmann rounded out a well-fought contest with this spectacular free kick to give Juventus hope heading into the second leg. And Juventus weren't exactly a pushover, but I do feel like a game like that in the Champions League, away from home, against a top European side, should be a bit of a tougher test. However, I like the feel of the sliders at the moment, particularly the pace of the game. The only way I can make things more difficult, keeping it on legendary difficulty, is to speed the game up once again. So we may be moving up to ultimate difficulty. I don't tend to recommend ultimate difficulty because it does make everyone on the CPU team a 99 overall, which firstly isn't all that realistic, and secondly reduces the differentiation between players and teams. However, outside of the first half against Bayer Leverkusen, the first half against Stuttgart, I haven't really felt tested at any point yet this season. And again, we are not tested against Augsburg as Emre Can continues his incredible goal-scoring form this season, grabbing another 2. So we are going to be trying ultimate difficulty for the first time in the featured game of today's episode. We're also going to be trying a new formation for the first time in the series. So without further ado, let's head over to Signal Iduna Park and see if we can progress to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. So we're going with the 4-1-3-2 today. A system that Dortmund used to great success recently against Wolfsburg, with a 3-1 victory despite going down to 10 men. However, we'll have to see if it's going to be too much change too quickly, as we've also made the step up to ultimate difficulty. So changing systems and changing difficulties for the same game, and an important game, hopefully not going to be a mistake. Hopefully not going to be too ambitious. So it's cut out well by Jan Couto, and Daniel Marlin could pounce on this and get in behind. Max Bayer certainly could. And he lays the ball off to Guirassy and gets the shot away. And if that is a sign of things to come, Max Bayer and Guirassy linking up, then I think that shows very positive signs for this particular system. We do, of course, have a 2-1 lead heading into this game, having overcome Juventus by a single goal in that away leg. And it was only a wonder strike from Antoine Griezmann late in the game that even gave Juventus a goal back. Gittins. It's going to take me a while to forget to say Bino Gittins. I don't think I've done so yet in today's episode, but it is going to take me a while to forget that. It's a great challenge by Mecha, who is taking on the solitary role of that holding defensive midfielder today. Emre Can also in the side, but he's starting at centre-back. Still no Anton. Niklas Serler on the bench. Max Bayer again getting in behind. And I think playing a 4-1-3-2 rather than the 4-2-3-1 could potentially suit us going forward, because in addition to the likes of Guirassy and Max Bayer as Emre Can heads clear, we do of course have Yusufa Moukoko out on loan. I'm not sure how Dortmund view him in real life, but I'm very much a fan of him in the game. So I would certainly like him back, as Couto this time strikes from range. I would certainly like him back in the yellow and black of Dortmund next season. I think he, alongside Bayer and Guirassy up front, could be dangerous. I think they could form a really dangerous trio. Daniel Marlin, it's going to be his turn to strike from range. It's at 3 separate players we've had get a shot away from that exact same area of the field. The Juventus goalkeeper unfortunately parrying away on each occasion, as we will find Julian Brandt, who is going to have his opportunity to score from the same area, this time blocked by a Juventus defender. So ultimate difficulty, like I said before the game, I don't tend to recommend, as Jan Couto has gone down injured. Felix and Mecha racing to get back and covering his position. And thankfully Schlotterbeck was also in the area of the cross, because it looked for a moment as if Juventus might be able to take advantage of Jan Couto's injury. We have made Jan Couto's loan deal permanent. That has taken place in real life. Dortmund triggering the €25 million buy option. So we have replicated that here in game. He has picked up a knock though. But as I was saying, ultimate difficulty, not something I tend to recommend, simply because it makes everybody a 99 overall. And when you are aiming for realism, minimizing the disparity between the best and the worst players is not ideally something that you want to do. However, I do feel like we are being forced into it, because, again, as I said, I really like the feel of the sliders at the moment. I really love the pace of the game. It's been as slow as we've been able to make it for some time. Can we find Max Bayer? No, we can't. And that's obviously a big obstacle in terms of achieving a realistic kind of simulation style experience in the game, is slowing it down. And you do kind of have to pick your poison to some extent. Oh, that's such a good interception from Schlotterbeck. Juventus looking to play the ball in behind. Schlotterbeck cuts it out. But you do have to kind of pick your poison when it comes to trying to create the most realistic possible experience, because the way that we would remain on legendary difficulty but make the game more difficult is to increase the acceleration again and the sprint speed along with it. It's the acceleration really that is reducing the amount of purpose the CPU have in their play at the moment, and that's what is making these games feel a little too easy. That's a poor pass from Yan Kuto. There's just not the same purpose, intensity to the CPU's play at the moment, and that is a result of lowering the acceleration. So if we wanted to make things more difficult again, we would have to raise the acceleration, but then that of course means speeding the game up. So you can have the game slow, a more realistic pace, or you can have the CPU play with purpose and intensity. You unfortunately can't really have both. We are playing far too many of these lob through balls at the moment, trying to get Garassi and Max Bayer running in behind. However, it's not working out, and we need to stop squandering possession in the same way. That's a great ball from Griezmann. Finds Conceição, who gets a shot away straight at Kobel, thankfully. Goalkeeper well positioned. The angle a narrow one. But that is the kind of play we want to see a little bit more often from the CPU. A bit more direct, a bit more incisive, a bit more purposeful. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to bring Yan Kuto off here momentarily. Early impressions, the game does feel slightly more difficult on Ultimate. I would only say slightly, though. I have also even increased the pass speed by 2 for the CPU. Max Bayer wins the header, goes wide. Yan Kuto put the cross in, but I think we're going to have to take him off here, as we are getting a quick substitution prompt to do so. So unfortunately, having recently signed his permanent contract at Borussia Dortmund, Yan Kuto makes way for Ryerson, who comes on at right back and is not anywhere near as suited to that overlapping wing-back role as Yan Kuto is. More of a traditional fullback like Benzabaini on the opposite side. Garassi almost forced his way past the Juventus back line. However, they do manage to deal with it, and Luke Shaw finds a fellow ex-Premier League player in Douglas Luiz. Luke Shaw, an interesting signing for Juventus. Out of favour at Manchester United, has been injured, of course, so much recently at Manchester United. But you could see there, we dispossessed Juventus far too easily. And we are almost in behind, but Donyell Malen doesn't even have the pace to keep up with that. I'm kind of disappointed to read in the comments that Donyell Malen is fairly likely to leave Borussia Dortmund, because I really like him. I think he's a really useful player, particularly in game. We will find him here at the byline, and he will look for Max Bayer, who manages to find. We really would like Julian Brand on the edge of the box here. Instead, it's going to be Felix Amecha, who puts the ball just wide. We've had numerous opportunities to tuck it into that far corner, each of them just on this right-hand side of the penalty area. Each shot either being parried wide by the Juventus goalkeeper or failing to hit the target, as is the case there with Amecha. Locatelli back to his keeper, and Max Bayer will pressure him, just forcing the keeper eventually to hook clear. Ryerson finds Brand, who's had such an incredible start to the season, and that's a great challenge from the Juventus defender. Julian Brand looking to give him a step over. And Emre Can, one-on-one. Can't prevent the ball from finding Griezmann. Thankfully, the outside of the foot shot goes wide. It was an ambitious effort from Griezmann. Did look to have fooled Kobel somewhat, so could have nestled into that far corner. Thankfully didn't. Schlotterbeck. As we approach half-time here at home, I think we can afford to just try and see this first half out without incident. It's poor from Donyell Malen, because we do of course have that goal advantage, coming into the game. So as long as we can protect that and fail to concede, we're going to be well positioned to progress to the quarterfinals. Gittins. Just lay it into Nmecha and Schlotterbeck. Gittins once more. Speaking of Daniel Marlin, however, we do have plenty of options in the wide areas. In addition to Jamie Gittins, we of course have Karim Adeyemi. We of course have Giovanni Reina. We have Duranville out on loan this season as well, but he is certainly in the running to be more of a first team player next season. I'm not sure if he's playing in real life for Borussia Dortmund, but he's, I believe, just a 67 overall in game at the moment. It doesn't make sense to keep him in the squad. It makes a lot more sense to send him out on loan, try and boost that overall by a handful of points, and have him play a bit more of a role next season. Max Bayer. Ryerson on the overlapping run. Looks for Bayer once more in the box, but it is going to be a late corner here in the first half, which Julian Brand will take, and it will be an outswinger. And we will just try and crowd the keeper here and loft the ball up towards the edge of the 6-yard box. That's a free header from the Juventus defender though. Gittins gets there first, but the referee's half-time whistle does go before we can make anything of it. And it will be 0-0 at half-time. So not a huge step up in difficulty. We might need to tweak the sliders a little bit as well as increase it to ultimate. Juventus still not causing us too much of an issue. But for now we will be happy enough with that, because it does mean progression to the next round of the Champions League if it continues. If you're enjoying the game and today's episode, please take a second to like the video. And if you want to see more realistic FC25 content, be sure to subscribe, not just to catch the next episode of this series, but other realistic career modes, realistic rebuilds, slider updates that might be dropping in the future. And if you want to get ahead of the curve and see those kinds of videos before anybody else, consider becoming a 12th man member of the channel. Membership starts at just $1.99 a month and grants you exclusive early access to all new videos, with tier rewards scaling up from there, and including the possibility of being featured in my career mode saves. Thank you to everyone who is already supporting the channel through their membership. It is genuinely very much appreciated and helps the channel to run. But now let's head back out for the second half. So thank you again to everybody who has commented on episode 1 and 2. As I said, it is really useful to hear just from people in general, just to get a range of ideas about what constitutes realistic transfers, ideas for tactics and all those kinds of things. It is particularly useful to hear from fans of the club that we are using. I do research the teams that I use to some extent, but I'm obviously no expert on every single football team, whereas fans of that team are far better placed to comment on the ins and outs, the comings and goings of their particular club. So thank you to all the Borussia Dortmund fans who have offered their input. Jamie Gittins does have a turn of pace about him. Doesn't quite have enough of a turn of pace to entirely beat the Juventus defender. Now watch how far this goes. I'm going to tap the X button so lightly, but I almost guarantee it goes out of play. That's so deep. That was literally as light as I could possibly press the X button. And it's completely overhit all of our players. Girassi, Bayer are only two strikers at the moment. So when we are playing this 4-1-3-2, we don't really have any depth behind them. Adeyemi, I'm sure, can play in one of those roles. And potentially even Julian Brand could play up there as well. Especially if that's such a good challenge from Schlotterbeck. That's not such a good challenge from Brandt. But I think Brandt could play up there, especially if we put him on kind of a false 9 build-up style role. As we can see though, Juventus in the final third They just have no creativity. They have... Oh, my God. Okay. I was about to say they have no creativity. They have no precision. Douglas Luiz... Is that Douglas Luiz? It is, right? Used to seeing him... It is. I'm used to seeing him with, like, bleached, highlighted hair. He looks kind of strange without it. That is certainly precise. It's taken Juventus the best part of an hour to create an opportunity like that, though. And Douglas Luiz makes no mistake when he finds the opportunity, and he does absolutely bury it in the top corner. So, at 2-2, we do need to press for another goal here. As we again look for Guirassy on one of those chipped balls in behind. Again, we fail to find him. We will find Ryerson here and Julian Brandt. But we will not find Max Bayer. A little too slow to release the pass there, Brandt. And Felix Mmecha again is going to have to cover up right back. As Ryerson tucks in, Chan thankfully cuts it out. And Donyell Marlon can come away on this right-hand side. Instead, just checks back. We will just keep possession. Schlotterbeck into Benzabaini. Gittins once more. Felix Mmecha, solitary holding midfielder, doesn't really have the deep line playmaker Sabitzer to release the ball to in those kinds of situations as he is used to. Max Bayer will find Ryerson and will look for Guirassy towards the back post, who doesn't win the header. And Conceição will try and switch the ball to Gonzalez, manages to do so. Locatelli stepping up, just releases to Koopmeiners. Conceição once more. This is a bit more aggressive from Juventus. And a ball into Griezmann, finds the goal scorer Douglas Luiz. Poor pass in the end though, and again we can find Max Bayer with Guirassy, and we've got a little too much on it this time. Guirassy's one flaw, he's just not very quick. Good finisher, strong, powerful in the air, but doesn't have that turn of pace about him that somebody like Max Bayer or Jamie Gittins does. It's header well won by Felix Mmecha. Max Bayer will apply the pressure. Donyell Marlon will get in and steal the ball away. Unfortunately, it's a lucky bounce for Juventus. Straight to another black and white shirt, and that's a nice ball in behind for Griezmann. Schlotterbeck again comes across to deal with it. And Julian Brandt back in a defensive position, steals the ball away, and Gittins can make use of that pace once again. With Max Bayer ahead of him, who he manages to find. Donyell Marlon at the back post, cut out by Juventus. It does fall for Guirassy, and he just lays it off for Gittins, who strikes with his right foot and buries it. Add that to the list of goal of the season contenders. Jamie Gittins cutting in off the left-hand side. We tend to see him hug the touchline on that left-hand side. Try and beat players for pace. It's usually rather the likes of Julian Brandt that we see do things like that. But it was Jamie Gittins on this occasion. Guirassy dropping deep and just laying the ball off to him. And absolutely no chance for the Juventus goalkeeper. And we restore our single goal advantage deep in the second half, which again is going to see us through to the quarter-final if things remain as they are. We do have about half an hour, maybe a little less, to ensure that things remain the way that they currently are. And I think Juventus are going to test us in this final portion of the game. They're certainly not going to test us with that. So Juventus to make a change or two here as Vlahovic comes on. We are also going to make a couple of changes of our own, as Julian Brandt is going to move out to the right-hand side as Sabitzer comes on in place of Donyell Marlon. So Sabitzer will move to the central area of the pitch, whilst Julian Brandt will move out to the right. And it is going to be Karim Adeyemi on for Guirassy as well. So he will partner Max Bayer up front for the remainder of the game. Gittins finds Zabitzer, the substitute. And Ryerson on the right-hand side. We will have Brandt drifting in off that right-hand side. Find Max Bayer in a nice little position. Just lays it off for Julian Brandt, who can lob the ball up towards Karim Adeyemi, who can't quite win the header, but it falls for Gittins. And Adeyemi just lingers on the ball for slightly too long and allows the Juventus goalkeeper to steal the ball away off his toe. He was offside anyway. Gittins taking up some good positions in the more narrow areas of the field. It's not something I expected him to do. He is just set to, I believe, wide playmaker. So his tactical role is very much instructing him to stay wide. But he is instead drifting inside. I'm not complaining. As Weston McKennie comes on for Juventus. Adeyemi. Bayer wants it early. Again, we can't find him, but Zabitzer brings it down. Bino, no, not Bino Gittins. Just Jamie Gittins finds Adeyemi. Gets the strike away. Parried away at the near post by the Juventus goalkeeper, though. Oh, and that's such a good ball in behind for Griezmann. We had 3 defenders there. Kogel comes off his line. Griezmann, what has he done? This is what I mean about the CPU not playing with any purpose or any intensity or any real intention. That was not just a sitter for Griezmann. He had about 3 sitters there. He burst through on goal. He could have taken the shot on early and would have had a decent chance of scoring. He beat the goalkeeper and had an almost empty net to tap into. And then he passed it. Gittins finds Adeyemi once more. And there's Bayer. And Julian Brandt cutting in off that right-hand side to secure the game and the victory. And he puts it wide. Goal-scoring form that Brandt has been in so far this season. You would have bet your house on him putting that in the back of the net and securing our progression to the quarterfinals. And he puts it wide. Probably the easiest chance he's had all season. He's already got 2 goal of the season contenders. That was one of the easiest goals he will ever score. And he fails to do so. A little bit too much time potentially there. It's Gittins again. He's going to stretch his legs. He's up against Danilo though, but he does have the pace to wriggle away from Danilo. We'll play the ball in behind for Max Bayer. Do have players in support like Julian Brandt, so we will just utilise them. And Zabitzer. Adeyemi finds Ryerson. Finds Brandt once more, who just eases past his man, bursts into the box, and again puts it wide. More difficult opportunity, that one. But should have at least got it on target there. He did the hard part. Edged past the Juventus defender really tidily. Just tried to put it across the keeper and into that far corner. Didn't quite manage to do so. McKennie finds Locatelli. Juventus trying to get back into this game late. We have just 10 minutes to see out. It's a great challenge by Sabitzer, but it's going to be called back. And it is. Didn't really see too much wrong with it myself. Griezmann will deliver though. Puts it deep into the area. And it thunders off the crossbar. We saw that a number of times in the Crystal Palace save. Dean Henderson being caught in no man's land. And that's so well headed clear by Mecha. And Brand is going to be able to while away a precious few minutes here. Catching Juventus with players high up the field. Taking that opportunity just to take the ball into the corner. And then back out with Ryerson. We did see that a handful of times in the Crystal Palace save. Dean Henderson being caught in no man's land. Headers from those kind of areas looping over the top of him and ending up in the back of the net. Thankfully, that one found the top of the crossbar instead. Schlotterbeck finds Ryerson, who's just going to tuck in again. Mecha. Emre Can. And LAMBZY. Gittins dropping in to provide support as well. If we can just keep Juventus chasing for the final couple of minutes of the game, should be able to see this one out. Here's Karim Adeyemi though, looking for Max Bayer. Again, couldn't quite find him. Schlotterbeck doesn't win it in the air though. I thought he was guaranteed to win that up against Griezmann. Instead just ends up taking a tumble. Griezmann too strong for him. Sabitzer dropping back. It's a nice little ball in towards Griezmann, but Emre Can deals with it so well. And Jamie Gittins can surely see out these final few minutes. Adeyemi uses the run of Gittins just to cause a distraction and cuts inside instead. And Emre Can has got it all wrong. And Vlahovic could be in behind for Juventus. Schlotterbeck thankfully well positioned. And Kobel comes out to make the save, but can't prevent Griezmann from tucking it into the far corner. And what a disaster late in this game. Emre Can gets it all wrong, loses control of the ball, allowing Juventus to steal it away and catch us on a quick counter. Schlotterbeck then fails to win the ball back right here. And Griezmann all alone puts it through the legs of Kobel to tie things up. Disastrous end to this game. And Max Bayer is injured, and it was the final action of the 90 minutes. I don't know how we've let that one slip. All we needed to do was see out the final 3 minutes. And we have failed to do that. And we are going to be heading to extra time here at Signal Iduna Park. So Max Bayer still nursing that injury. So he may well have to come off here in the second half as well, which is far from ideal. Because Guirassy, of course, has already left the field. Bayer could be in behind here though. Can't beat his man. And not only is that going to be an issue here in extra time, if Bayer is forced off the field, but it's going to be an issue if we end up going to penalties as well. Because Guirassy and Bayer certainly would have been two that would be on the list to take a penalty. And we may well be losing them both. I have spoken previously about my thoughts regarding penalty shootouts and substitutions. I think you should have... Good block, Schlotterbeck. Get there, Can, and he does. I think you should have access to your entire matchday squad for penalties. Because that would save situations like this. We want to bring Guirassy off in the second half. We probably want to bring Max Bayer off simply because he's injured. But even if he wasn't, we would potentially want to bring him off just for a pair of fresh legs to try and win the game in extra time. But we would be hesitant to do so because we then would be in the knowledge that we wouldn't have access to him for a penalty shootout. So we're then incentivized to keep him on. But it's then less likely that we're going to be pressing forward to try and score the winning goal because our striker is absolutely shattered. It would also prevent managers from having to bring players on at the very end of the game. We may not even get to penalties, and it's absolutely buried, but it's offside. Thankfully, it's offside. Milik puts the ball in the back of the net. Same corner that Douglas Luiz found. Thankfully, he was in an offside position when he did so. But that would also prevent managers from having to bring players on at the very end of the game simply to take a penalty. I think it just makes so much more sense to say, if the game goes to penalty shootouts, anyone can take one. Whether they're on the field, on the bench, whether they've been substituted earlier in the game or not. It just makes so much more sense to me. Locatelli. Juventus definitely pressing for the winner. Definitely don't want penalties, and they've probably found the winner. Vlahovic celebrating as if he has. And I think potentially we underestimated this move up to ultimate. When they turn it on, the CPU, certainly they can score. We've seen that in this game. I think potentially we're just going to have to take more control over games. Prevent the CPU teams from being in opportunities like this to be able to score in the first place. But we are now the team 3-1 down, chasing an equaliser to send this to penalties. Juventus didn't want penalties, and if things remain as they are, they're not getting penalties. Bayer turns onto his right foot, fires, big save from the keeper. We are going to make a couple more changes here before we take the corner, though. It is going to be Max Bayer to leave the field, unfortunately. Giovanni Reina on to replace him. Merlin Röhl also on to replace Felix Metscher. Schlotterbeck. Oh, I think he won the header as well, and he did. 4-1 in the end. But Sabitzer has dropped into that CDM role now in place of Metscher. We have Merlin Röhl in that centre midfield role. Julian Brandt still out on the right. That's a nice ball dropped into the path of Weston McKennie. It's a nice touch too. And Zabaini chasing him back. Gets a foot in well. Forces the ball out for a Juventus throw. Which will be taken deep, to be fair. We're going to have to get out and press Locatelli here because he's got far too much space to roam. And that's nicely worked from Juventus. They get another shot away. Big save from Kobel, who is furious with his back line. Allowing Juventus far too much space to work in there. And we've allowed them essentially a free header. And this is going to be risky, but we're going to have to roll the ball out into the feet of Julian Brandt to try and get one final attack away here in the first half of extra time. Adeyemi doesn't have too many players up in support, and he had Ryerson on that overlapping run. Couldn't quite find the half-yard of space to find him. But at half-time of extra time, we are currently on track to lose our first game of the series and to crash out of the Champions League when we had things fully under control. And it's just going to be one final change as we come out for the second half of extra time. And that's going to be Pascal Gross on for Ryerson at right back, and that is with penalties in mind. Pascal Gross, a decent enough penalty taker, and we don't really have that many options in terms of penalty takers on the field. That's if we even get to penalties, of course. But I imagine Brandt, maybe Sabitzer, Merlin Röhl, Jamie Gittens, and probably Pascal Gross if we manage to get there. Julian Brandt finds Merlin Röhl, trying to carve out a little bit of space for himself, finds Giovanni Reina and Adeyemi, and the shot is blocked. And we have stepped up into our attacking focus for the second half of extra time, desperately chasing an equaliser in the fixture, not in the game, but an aggregate equaliser. This ball from Merlin Röhl out to Pascal Gross, and he can deliver in search of Brandt, who wins the header and is parried away by the Juventus keeper. Potentially could have held on to it, but his teammates celebrate him nonetheless. And Brandt will deliver the corner into a good area in search of Schlotterbeck. Emre Can, and you better have got back on side, and he hasn't. You have to be more urgent about getting back on side there. That is unforgivable. Nodded down by Juventus, and we are running out of time, and that's a great ball in behind. Schlotterbeck, of course, is going to be there, though, because he is there every single time. Julian Brandt will drive at Juventus. And look, where are the defenders? And we have a penalty. This is what I mean about the lack of engagement. I simply think acceleration is going to have to go back up. Julian Brandt picked up the ball just inside his own, just inside the Juventus half there, and has been able to drive all the way onto the penalty spot without being engaged. Emre Can, of course, still on the field, will be able to take a penalty. And this could be a penalty to send us to penalty shootouts if Emre Can can bury this. It's not the best penalty, but he's buried it nonetheless. And with 7 minutes left on the clock, we are still in it. I think we have to put the acceleration back up because Julian Brandt simply cannot be allowed to progress and travel that far with the ball, just with no engagement whatsoever from the CPU defenders. And it's a real shame because I love the pace of the game as it is. But as soon as you raise that acceleration, runs like that from Julian Brandt just don't happen. I'll try and potentially find some kind of middle ground where we can raise the acceleration to the lowest possible level and still get engagement. But I think based on how we performed in penalty shootouts in the Crystal Palace save, I think we were 100% on penalty shootouts. I think we went 3 for 3 when we went to penalties in that series. I don't think we have to press too hard for a winning goal here. Although Karim Adeyemi may well have one anyway, and he does! Back-to-back goals in about 3 minutes. Linking up with Giovanni Reina. And it's been a 6-goal thriller here at home. And thanks to that 2-1 victory away from home in the first leg, it looks as though we are going to progress after all. Fantastic finish from Adeyemi. Beating Luke Shaw for pace to find half a yard of space in the penalty area. And Juventus, after being fully in control, now look like they've given the tie away. So again, we find ourselves in the same position we found ourselves at the end of the 90. 3 minutes left on the clock, simply to run the game away. To whittle away these final few minutes and come away with the victory. Let's not make the same mistake that we made at the end of the 90 and concede a silly goal. Gonzalez, Jamie Gittins tracking back. Need as many men behind the ball as possible. Gittins well positioned, as is Merlin Röhl. Has to drop in here though against Locatelli. Bentabeni. Can he get the foot in? No, he can't. But Emre Can is going to be able to head clear. And Merlin Röhl is going to be able to play the ball against the Juventus man. Against his hand too. If we can just find Karim Adeyemi here. 2 minutes of injury time have already begun. Pascal Gross with no options in the box. He's just going to turn back towards the corner flag. And Brandt finds Zabitzer. And we have 2 men over, one of whom is Jamie Gittins. And somehow we have managed to progress here. Looked as though we were out. Looked as though we were dead and buried. I've made numerous references to the Crystal Palace series in this game. But I'll make one more. We looked dead and buried a number of times in the final season of the Crystal Palace save, only to rise again and edge our way to victory. And we've done that here at home against Juventus. 2 goals in the second period of stoppage time. One from Emre Can and one from the hero Karim Adeyemi. Sees us through to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Bundesliga rivals Bayer Leverkusen will also be progressing to the quarterfinals. They advanced 3-0 on aggregate over Aston Villa. Liverpool advanced 3-1 over AC Milan. And Barcelona thump PSV in the round of 16. 6-2 on aggregate. It's a similar story with Manchester City and Salzburg though, 5-2. Bayern Munich have actually been knocked out by Arsenal despite leading 2-1 heading into the return fixture. Arsenal progressed 3-2 on aggregate. Inter Milan knock out RB Leipzig, our other Bundesliga rivals 3-2 on aggregate, and Real Madrid will also progress. Fortunately, Max Bayer only suffered a bruised elbow in that previous game against Juventus, so he'll only be out for 5 days. It's not such good news for Jan Couto, who did break his toe, so will be out for 3 months and the remainder of the season. The pairings have already been drawn for the quarterfinals, and we will be taking on Liverpool. We do have 2 final games in the Bundesliga to get to today, though. First away at RB Leipzig, and then we're going to round things out with a matchup at home against Mainz. And we are actually looking to make it 3 straight unbeaten months to start the series. Karim Adeyemi, Merlin Röhl, and Marcel Zabitzer will all come back into the side to try and make that happen here at Red Bull Arena. This one was another thriller, this time of the 5-goal variety, but we did have to wait until an hour into the game before Guirassy spun his man to open the scoring. Lois Openda equalised for RB Leipzig 10 minutes later, though, after a neat through ball. But Guirassy would give us the lead once more after Marlon played a neat through ball of his own. And as the game began to draw to a close, RB Leipzig equalised once again, only for Guirassy to pounce once more with 2 minutes remaining to grab his hat-trick and the last minute winner, which leaves us with just one final game to get to as we host Mainz to round out March, where we come away with yet another victory. Felix and Mecha being sent off in the 84th minute, but that not coming back to bite us after Zabitzer scored 2 goals to give us an early advantage. Burkhardt pulling one back for Mainz. So we will be without Felix and Mecha as we travel to Freiburg to open the next episode. It'll be interesting to see if Merlin Rell gets the start against his old club. We do, of course, have that all-important Champions League quarter-final against Liverpool to get to as well as some other important matchups in the Bundesliga. Bayern Munich, Borussia Mönchengladbach is the name of the team, Hoffenheim as well. So you have to bear with me over the next episode or two as we try and tweak and perfect these sliders to get the games to be as challenging and as realistic as possible. But that will do it for this one. I hope to see you in the next one. Take it easy.